What's going on, everybody? Today in this tutorial we will be working with the PS1 console, or the PS1 Slim as some people call it. And specifically we're going to be trying to fix a PS1 with no audio or video signal. Now I will be talking about a couple little things, as I'm going to kind of handle this more of a troubleshoot slash diagnostic like I've done with some of my more recent videos, because there can be a few problems that you could be dealing with if your console doesn't have audio or video. So we're going to start real quick with the audio video cable, because a lot of you are going to just kind of push that to the side. But you do want to make sure that your audio video cable is not your problem. Those are not very high quality. It's very easy to get shorts or disconnects in them. So this whole video is assuming that you've already confirmed that your AV cable is good somehow, or that you have bought a replacement, a brand new one, and can confirm you still don't have the signal. Because, yeah, that could be your problem the whole time, and you won't have to do any of these repairs. So, fair warning, if you don't check that first, you could be wasting your time. So, the next thing is the AV port itself, and the AV ports on these they're not very good. Now, they're better than they made them for the PlayStation 2, but they're still pretty prone to failure if there's any kind of damage. So what we're going to do is we're going to get this opened up first, and we're just going to visually inspect the port and make sure there are no issues with it. So all we're going to do is, you got to keep in mind that there's usually a warranty seal right here. So you've got a screw that you may have to pull the warranty seal off or take it out through it. And then the rest, you can see pretty easy. They're all Phillips head. Okay, we're going to flip it over. And now you can just pop this right off. You want to be careful with your disk drive, especially around the data ribbon right here. So what we're going to do is we're going to just unplug the power cord part, and then you want to kind of lift this up out of place, but not too much, because you want to grab the ribbon cable as close as you can to the motherboard. Don't just yank it out anywhere. That way you don't accidentally rip that cable. Then these can kind of like semi-attach. There's a little pin that kind of goes through the control port. So what you got to do is you got to lift it from the back, and then you got to kind of work it out. There's really no other good way to do it besides just working it out like that. Okay, then what we're going to do is we're just going to look, okay? If you see any kind of cracking or damage, especially around here at the base, or, right around here, anything that's obvious that there's a crack or something, I can almost guarantee that that's going to cause you problems. Now, you could still have an issue with the other stuff we talk about, but if you've got one that you see obvious cracks and stuff and damage to it, then you would almost definitely have to replace this. Now, the issue is that the only way to replace this is if you'd have to scalp one that's good, and that means you're probably just going to be wasting a whole nother motherboard, because most of the time, if it's got a good AV port, anything that's wrong with that motherboard is probably fixable. So it's really not worth it unless you just so happen to have one, or maybe you've got a motherboard that you know is damaged. Maybe the traces got cut or something somehow. Beyond that, it's going to be kind of hard to scalp one of these if you realize this needs to be replaced. So more than likely, you would want to lean towards replacing the motherboard itself at that point. And if that's the case, check the links in the description, because there will be a link down there for replacement motherboards. We could replace this on camera, but replacing that port is a whole video by itself, and we're really going to be dealing with something that maybe 5 to 10% of you are going to have this issue. So most of you aren't going to even need to do this, so we're not going to cover actually trying to replace this in this video. But you know what? If that is something you'd like to see, let me know in the comments and stuff. If I get enough people requesting it, I can make another video on replacing this. If you're pretty sure if this looks good, you also want to check on the inside here too. There's it's going to be kind of hard to get it on camera, but there's that black strip of plastic that's inside, If you see like frayed wires and stuff like that, or that piece of black strip plastic right there is like doesn't look like that, it kind of looks damaged or cracked or anything, that is definitely going to be a problem as well. Now, if you've looked at it and everything looks good, then more than likely what we're dealing with is a capacitor issue. So in specific terms, we have two capacitors here that directly handle some of the audio video signal stuff and getting it to the processors. And we have two 4-volt 220 ohm resistors here. So those are what's going to be your problem. I'd say out of everybody that has this issue, 99% of you are going to need to replace these caps. Now, luckily, it's only two capacitors. All the capacitors on this can fail and all that, but the ones specifically that are going to deal with the audio video are these two right here. And just keep in mind that there's a third one right here next to it. That one is not involved with the audio video directly, so we won't deal with that third one. We're just dealing with both of these two 4-volt ones that are right here. Now, you got to be careful about the capacitors because the small capacitors do have certain codes. You might accidentally get the wrong caps here. So again, if you want to check the link in the description, I've got a link in there. It's going to bring you to a capacitor kit where it's got both of the correct capacitors and the correct size capacitors, because you can get some that are a little bit different sizes that will also not fit. So we're going to get on to actually replacing these. Now, these are SMD or surface mount diode capacitors. These are a lot more of a pain to deal with than through-hole capacitors. These, everything is attached right to the top, so it is a little bit more complicated. We're going to start with a heat gun, and I wanted to talk about that real quick because as soon as we get to the soldering station, I'm going to start hitting it with the heat gun. You want to use a heat gun that is actually meant for rework and soldering rework. As what I mean by that is you can go to any hardware store and get like one of these huge ones, you know, that's really meant for stripping paint. You don't really want to use that here because the nozzle is too big and the heat is too large. It's going to heat a huge area and it could mess up some components. So what you want is something more like this, which has a much smaller head on it, and it has the attachable tips so it can be even more concentrated. I don't even use a tip for this tutorial. But all we're going to do is we're going to essentially be heating these up with this to remove them. Now, you can use a soldering iron if you don't want to use the heat gun, but it's going to be a lot more difficult because these are mounted underneath them. So I'm not going to show you how to desolder this with a soldering iron because I don't even want to do that. That's just how much of a pain it is. So we're going to move over and you're going to see that I'm going to start this up, and I'm just going to go in kind of a circular motion while I'm heating this up. Don't just bear down in one place. You'll see I'm kind of moving it, rotating. You don't have to do anything crazy. And it should only take just a couple of seconds to heat it up enough, and you'll see that they'll start lifting right up. So I'm going to move over, get all the cameras set up, and we're going to start using the heat gun to get these removed. Alright, so you saw we got them both removed. Now actually this one is kind of pretty clean. A lot of the ones I see are a lot dirtier than this. But what we're going to do now is we're actually going to clean this area. But you do see some brown areas and stuff like that. That's all leakage from the caps. And if you see brown areas like that, and if you see ones even worse than that, then yeah, it's a pretty good indicator that you are going in the right direction here as far as getting this problem fixed. So what we need to do is we're going to take some rubbing alcohol, and we're just going to put a few drops in this area, and the leakage will spread, so we want to go just a little further out as well. I'm just going to take this Q-tip and we're just going to start getting it scrubbed up. Oh yeah, it should clean up pretty nicely, so don't put too much pressure on it. You don't have to worry about, it doesn't take a lot to get it all off of there. And we're just we want to get all up in here too, a little bit above these areas, because there's definitely going to be leakage all up in these areas for sure. Okay, that's pretty clean. I'm pretty happy with that. Now, the thing is, for this next part, we're going to be installing the new ones. And this is where it gets kind of difficult, right? Because being that these are surface mount, it's just kind of a pain to get the pads working well. So there's a lot of rookie mistakes people make. For starters, we're going to clean up these pads a little bit, but we don't want to add any solder at all, okay? We want as little solder as possible. And all we're really doing is we're just trying to flatten the pads out pretty well, so we make sure we've got a nice even place for our new caps to sit. And those don't look too bad, though that one pad looks a little rough. So what we're going to do is I'm cleaning up my soldering iron a little bit, and then we're going to put just a tiny little bit of solder on there, and we're just going to dab it. If you see any little places that are kind of running or that are raised or lower, you want to just kind of flatten those out. So we're going to get our first one on here, and these are 220 ohm 4 volt. But again, if you get that little kit, it'll come with 2 of these just like you need them. And what we want to do is, if we look at the cap, we're going to notice that they have those slanted angles. You'll see those line up perfectly with the design under it. And so we just want to line that up so that the polarity lines up with these little angles right here. And you notice there's one on each side. You can see the black line is going this way a bit. Okay, so what we're going to do first is we just want to tack one side just so we can get a leg that's like just a little bit attached. So we're going to put just, again, a very small amount of solder on our iron here, just a little dot. And then we're going to grab one end of the capacitor, and we're just going to put our iron right up to it, hold it for just a second, make sure that it's good and melted underneath, let off for just a couple of seconds, and we're tacked on there. Now, we're only doing that to tack on. A lot of people try to solder the whole thing and call that done. That is not a clean solder. And a clean solder joint for these surface mount are very important because they get messed up so easy, so you've got to have a good joint on it. So what we're going to do is, for the other side, we're going to come in with our soldering iron, and we're going to place it directly on the pad over here, and then we're going to come in with solder from this side. We're going to come in here, put the iron directly on the contact on the pad, and then we're going to come in with some solder right next to it. We're going to let it heat that pad and heat some solder, and then it'll go directly to the pad. Okay, that looks pretty good. But then we're going to come back to the first side, and this time we're going to solder this side exactly like we just did the second side. And don't put a lot of solder, you just need a little bit. Oh yeah, and I like that's a nice clean joint right there. We're going to give it a little test real quick just to make sure our eyes aren't deceiving us. You pull it one way and then the other way. Don't pull it this way because it's going to move that way. Yeah, as you can see, we got no movement there, so we are good. Those are great joints in there. So now we're just going to move on and do the exact same thing with the second one. We're just going to tack it in place first by putting a little bit of solder directly on the iron. Remember, you want to leave it just enough time. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now we're going to come in here and do a proper solder joint on this side. That's a beautiful thing right there. Oh, I'm going to clean that one up just a little bit. There we go. You saw on that last one, I came back and cleaned up that last pin. I put a little too much solder on it. So now we're just going to do this. And oh yeah, that's nice and sturdy. It's not moving at all. So we got great joints there. Okay, so now we should be pretty good, right? Now the thing is, we can take this, we can go plug it in and test it and see what happens. And if you still end up having no video and no audio issue, now we're starting to get into the really crazy territory. We've got our processors and stuff like right here that could be out of spec. And so what can happen is you have to trace back and find, some of these resistors and capacitors could be out of spec, and that's where it's going to get really, really tricky. And that's also the part where you're really going to have to start wonder, is it worth my time to fix it at this point? Because, and I'll show you around here, we've got our main chip here, and if this chip goes, you're not going to get any video signal. You'll still get power, but you're just not going to get anything. So you could have your main dead chip right here. So right here we have a known resistor array that's in between those two large chips. You might want to check that with your multimeter. And so I have replaced this a handful of times, and it brought my audio video signal back. But really the problem is that you've got all these SMD components right here. And anything could be failing, on any of this stuff. So that's where, we're talking about a whole another 2 or 3 videos for that part, and it's not something I'm going to dig into real heavy. But I did want to just cover that if you were one of the unlucky people that the capacitors didn't solve your problem. And again, if you get to that point and you tracing back along these lines and finding what's wrong, if that's not your thing, again, check the link in the description because there is the replacement ones you can get that are working and ready for you to use. But anyways, besides that, that's it for this one, guys. So until next time.